the way from Bokota Village in Limpopo, South Africa, we bring you Missionary Minds, where you can learn about family, church history, biblical worldview issues, and of course, missions, all from the mind of a real-world missionary of almost 20 years. Buddy Paul, having become a father now and having little Obadiah be added to our family, I've really enjoyed what it's like thinking about the type of man he'll become. And even with future children, if the Lord will bless us with them, thinking about what that journey will be like as well. But I'm very often thinking, how do I go about raising him in a way that honors the Lord, makes him a productive member of society, and makes him a son I'll be proud of in the future? And that's what we want to talk about today. So I'll hand it over to you now. And the question will essentially be, what are practical ways fathers can teach their sons? Over to you, Mfundisi.
First, a story. Walk with me into a art gallery, and here we are seeing beautiful portraits to our left and to our right. And there we see a beautiful painting called Martin Luther in the Circle of His Family. And here he is, not with a guitar, with a lute, which is a form of a guitar. And I believe this painting probably in the 1700s painted. And he has his wife off to his right. And then he has, I believe it's 4 children. 2 of them are standing. And then one is just kind of gazing into nothingness. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, something to expect with a certain age of child. And then the 4th child is the youngest, and this one's sitting on, this little one's sitting on the lap of his wife, Kate. And then even in the background, doesn't quite fit, but hey, maybe that happened. You had Philip Melanchthon kind of sitting in the background. That's his homie, right, that lives nearby. So he's sitting in the background. And I love this picture because it shows this great reformer who is teaching his children. But there's several interesting parts about this painting. One is he doesn't have his giant family German Bible open with them taking notes. He's singing with them. He liked to write music and sing with his family. That's a way of teaching. And the home is not this perfect example of order. It shows the older brother who has got his sister next to him, and he's kind of holding the music for his sister so that they can sing together. I think that's a teaching point. There were probably times when he had the hymn book all to himself, and his sister had to crane her neck to see, and he probably stopped and said, "Son, show your book the right way. And we're preparing for worship of the Lord on Sunday." And then the little child, I don't know, probably about 5 years old, he's not singing at the top of his lungs. He's just gazing into nowhere. He probably just woke up for a nap, or he was just playing outside. He's not interested. I like that too, because it shows reality. This is the way it happens in homes. And then the other one is just sleeping. But Kate is there happily listening. Melanchthon is there. Just the whole thing I love. This is an example of a father teaching his family. Now, let's keep on going down through the art gallery. And we see beautiful paintings from side to side. And then we see another painting, and it's called, very basic, Reading the Bible. And this is by a French painter. And I believe this is also, I want to say 1725, something like that. And this is about 70 years or so before the French Revolution hits at the end of the 18th century. And there were times when there was great freedom to read the Bible in France, Edict of Nantes, etc., where they could read the Bible. Other times there were laws passed that it was outlawed to read the Bible around the time when this painting was given. So this is kind of the background to this father who is sitting down. It looks like a poor home. He's got kind of a dingy table. He's got a massive Bible, looks like an older man. And then the wife, probably it's the wife sitting across. She's listening, but she's tired. She's been working all day. And then it looks like a maid in the background, and she's grabbing a little child. I think the child is like chasing a kitten. I'm thinking, yes, even this morning, we had kittens and dogs in our house. Bodhi Carney, what am I supposed to do? What would you do? Oh, you'd love it because you like animals. Yep. So here we are in family worship this morning, and while we were singing, my son and my daughter were arguing about who got to hold the kitten. And I thought, I just saw this in a painting where the maid is holding the child back as he's chasing after the kitten. And then there's one child, it reminded me a little bit of Lawson, my son. The father's reading, and then there's this zealous boy behind him, like pointing to something that he's reading. And then there's another son. He's very somber looking. He's just standing. He almost looks like he has a bad attitude. Now, maybe he's just convicted, or maybe he just has a bad attitude. But even that is a teaching point. Here's a painting that shows all of these different movements in the warp and woof of life, of a father teaching his family. He's opening up the book. The wife is there. The family's there. Not everyone has A+ attitudes. Not everyone is sitting there with their hands folded, but he's doing it nonetheless, even in a setting where the Bible probably was outlawed at the time that this was painted. And I just want to kind of open us up with those paintings because it kind of sets the scene a little bit of what we're after. We're after fathers teaching their sons. And I thought we could look at a verse today in Proverbs 13:1, but kind of setting the tone a little bit of what we're after of fathers teaching sons.
Those are remarkable paintings. I'm just visualizing them as you're speaking. And this is even saying nothing of the artists who painted those, how to capture all those emotions. But I know some people who haven't had the privilege and blessing of spending time with your family, and just knowing that you have a family with 8 kids, they sometimes get intimidated at how it all works. And I've had the blessing of now coming into your home and seeing some of those scenes actually unfold, where one kid is jumping on the couch and another one is distracted, another one is collecting the hymn books and going through all the motions, and seeing that, hey, there are a lot of teaching opportunities here. So could you please start us off with Proverbs?
Yeah, and I remember in the early days, the first year that you were with us, you actually joined us for family worship.
Yes.
Do you remember that? And
yes.
Those are just kind of the early days. And then it was an easy graduation. It's like, okay, you're in high school, but you can only be in high school for so long, then you go off to university. That's the way it was with you. You were with us kind of the early days in family worship, and now it's such a joy, even overhearing sometimes, you having family worship in your own home so faithfully with Ceci Miso and your son, Obi. That's been a great reward.
Praise the Lord.
To see, and you're doing a great job at that. So let's just look at one brief verse here. This is Proverbs 13:1. A wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. Now we find the word father here. Father is found over 24 times, found over 24 times in Proverbs. And often when the father is mentioned, not always, but often he is teaching. We often also find the word mother in Proverbs, but not as often, probably half the time that we find the word father. And she's also teaching. So we can learn some lessons from this. Of course, this is Solomon writing to his son. Sadly, his son was Rehoboam. Probably only had one son. How is that possible? 700 wives, 300 concubines, one son. So that kind of gives you a flavor of what those marriages were really like. One son. And Solomon abdicated from the teachings he taught here. And then his son was even worse, and he didn't listen to his father's teachings. But we are taught that he is to take the primary responsibility. Now, one of the lessons we can take from this is that the only one teaching should not be the father. And we have examples in Scripture of mothers teaching, right? We have it in Proverbs 31, a great example, teaching the son. Of course, we think of Timothy, who is taught by his mother and his grandmother, Eunice and Lois. So we're not saying only fathers teach. We know that pastors ought to teach children as well. And you have teachers in day schools and family members. Yes, they can be teaching. But it seems as though throughout Scripture, the primary responsibility of teaching the children falls on the father. Even Ephesians 6:4, fathers, train up your children in the ways of the Lord, admonish them in the ways of the Lord. And if you don't, they will be, in the end, angry with you and be bitter at you. So we find a great example of this. A wise son accepts his father's discipline. So that discipline means teaching. He's teaching his son. Well, what are some practical ways that a father could be teaching his son? And so let me just give a few. One would be something we already mentioned, that is family worship. A great time for the father to teach his son would be either in the morning where the family's gathered, or in the evening when the family's gathered, or both. But I don't think an option is none. He needs to be teaching his sons. We find a great example of that in Psalm 78 in the early verses. Sit down with your family, sing, pray, read the Bible. You don't have to have a sermon. Even today, I think we were going through Acts 14 as a family, and I took a little break after teaching and was teaching my sons, now you have to do this. You have to read a few verses at a time and then pause your family and then unpack it a little bit. You don't have to be Martin Luther or John Calvin in the way you exposit script. Just be filling your mind with illustrations. You do a great job of that, Carney. You're always filling your mind with things. And what that does is it gives you illustrations. Somehow we got onto a crocodile today. I don't know how. No, it was an alligator. And I saw this clip of this man who, this alligator that had been in many movies. The alligator died, and here's this man. He's like stroking the snout of this dead alligator, and he's crying. I mean, the man must have been 60. He's crying, and he's stroking the snout. He's so sad. Listen, I'm just waiting for this crocodile to say, "Just joking," just biting his arm off. Somehow it was connected to Acts 14. But even if it's not directly related, if you're always filling your mind with illustrations, you're reading history, you're reading the Bible. I think of Spurgeon's library, half of the books in the library. Remember, we referenced that in the book we're reading about. They weren't even on theology. They were just on life. What that does is it gives windows, it brings light into the room, it gives the children a chance to breathe a little bit. Heavy theology, tell us a story about an alligator. Fathers do that. Gather them for family worship in the morning. That would be a practical example.
And that's a great one, because even with those stories being weaved in and, let me tell you about when I was a kid and my first time on a boat, and you're linking that from when the Apostle Paul was on the ship. And I've found that, at least being in your home, it really shows how you can involve Christ and the scriptures in all aspects of life. Whereas growing up, there was a very real sense of demarcations between these are spiritual things, then everything else is life and fun things. And then you keep the spiritual things by themselves. But it's really helps, like, okay, this is all of life is weaved in with scripture.
Yeah.
And that helps as well.
Another one, travel with them. Travel with your kids. I very rarely ever drive by myself. And I like how you do that too. Even though little Obi, so little, he typically doesn't travel with you, but you have so many boys in the ministry. They're either actually driving your car or in the passenger seat. Do that. I think I got that probably implicitly from my father. He never sat me down and said, I have you travel with me so I can teach you. It was just, I went with him to the ball games, grocery shopping, drop off the grass clippings. I mean, whatever it was, I was with him. That's a great time to teach your children. Try not to travel by your own. I understand morning commute to work, etc. And even if you don't have a car, travel by walking. I see so often in the village, men will be walking alone, and even sometimes their kids will be walking 10 paces behind them. Don't do that. Walk alongside your kids. Traveling is a great way to teach your kids. It makes me think of Deuteronomy 6 that says you're to teach your children in the way. Another example would be working with your kids. Work with them. Do jobs with them. Lay brick with them. Fix the lawnmower with them. Change the oil with them. It's a great opportunity to teach your kids. And it might not be actually words. I know when I'm in the groove, if I'm in the zone working, I tend not to talk much. I just want to get the job done. But even that is teaching because they're watching you. When you smash your finger with a hammer, how you're going to respond, or when you can't figure out the way to fix something, if you're going to keep on doing it, or if you're going to work late at night, even when it's cold outside, things like that. It's a great, have your kids holding the flashlight for you. Play with them. Play soccer with them. Play basketball with them. They need to see their father playing with them, acting like a kid, I'm in the stage now where my kids are crazy to be on my team. I know it's not always going to be that way, but everyone wants to be on my team to the point that we're all on the same team. We're not going to play anyone. I want to be on Father's team. Do that. Sports has a way of developing character and then revealing character, or maybe revealing a lack of character. So play with your kids. They should see you on your knees, acting like a horse, and they get to ride you, or playing soccer, or whatever it may be. Those would be some example. Lead by example. Watch them. There's so many opportunities for fathers to teach their children. And those are some practical ways I take from at least the first. We'll get to the second phrase, but the first phrase, a wise son accepts his father's discipline. That is, his father's teaching on the basketball court, underneath the car with the brake fluid, at family worship, by example, in the way, in the car. Teach your sons.
Great, brother. And I'm going to ask, what are some of the things which you're speaking to your sons about when you're in the car? Some fathers who haven't done this before might feel a bit of pressure as they're doing it. What can you talk to them about? Tell
me about your day. How was your day? I was fine. What'd you study? I studied such and such. Okay, you're looking for launch-off points. Now, you should always have in the back of your mind items to teach on. You're driving through, you see a bad billboard. Let's talk about guarding our eyes, purity. You're driving along, you see a big pothole. Well, if you're in this country, that won't take long. Talk to them about potholes. Why are there potholes? There's some really great lessons about why there's potholes. Go a little bit. You should take the entire scenery before you as you drive as like your chalkboard. That's your chalkboard. And whatever you see, use it as a launch-off point to teach your kid. Now ask them lots of questions. This is a great opportunity for them to open up. I even know when I go out on Fridays specifically, so I have one of the deacons at our church who's a dear man, and he always goes with me, and he's often in the front seat. And I thought, okay, he's older. I mean, he's in his 60s, and here's Owen. He's 12. So I'm going to have Owen sit in the back and Kukwana Shisana sit in the front. But then I started to change that a little bit because he doesn't talk a whole lot, and I have a responsibility to teach my son. And I have been told by my family sometimes, when we have guests, Father, you so badly want to make them feel welcome and to draw them out that your conversation is often directed very heavily towards the guests. The idea is, these are my kids. I get to talk to them all the time. So I want to focus on the guests. But I think I've been too extreme on that. So recently, probably the last couple months, I have Kukwana Shisana sit in the back. He's happy as a lark back there. And here's Owen sitting in the front. I think that communicates him, like I'm special to my dad. And now he wants to talk to me. And so for the whole drive to Tiani and back, we talk. Tell me about your day. If he's really talkative that day, I don't have to say much. He just talks, and then I affirm, and etc. Maybe if they're quiet, that's my opportunity to use what I see around me as a chalkboard to teach little lessons along the way.
Yes. And much of our audience, I'm sure, are in the homeschooling community. And we have a mixed audience, so there are probably others who aren't. But I can imagine the parent having to get in their minds that, hey, when you're in a homeschooling setting, everything is education since you're not outsourcing it. So there, as you speak about the pothole, let me tell you about the government when you see that pothole. Yeah. Let me teach you about engineering when you see that pothole, why the potholes form. Let me tell you about responsibility, how you should maybe fill that pothole when we get home. And I've seen you do all those things, which is helpful.
Now, this brings us to the second part, which is how to teach children in different ways, and then how children should respond to that teaching. So you think about a builder who has a hammer to do this job, and he has a trowel to do this job, and he has a waterpass, a level to do this job. He uses different tools for different tasks. That's the way fathers should be. Fathers don't teach their sons in exactly the same way. He might have one particular son that responds this way. He'll have to use, if I could say it this way, a waterpass with him. And then this one over here, I'm going to have to use a trowel or a chalk line with him because he responds differently. So I see that in verse 1. A wise son accepts his father's discipline, and a scoffer, that's a son as well, does not listen to rebuke. So now you find discipline and rebuke. Those two words would be different kinds of teaching. One would be maybe a mild admonition, and then the second one would be more of a firm rebuke. So fathers, let's be careful that we don't focus on only one side of these. There's a certain kind of father who only encourages. This is just this is the trend today, especially in parenting, grace-filled parenting, and it's only positive affirmation. I see this big time in athletics. You see the old school guys, they're now in like their 50s, 60s, 70s. They're like, man, when I was an athlete, my coach would just tear into me. And now everyone is just positive affirmation. You're doing a great job. Well, we could be imbalanced with that side today of only positive affirmation. I only say nice things. I see this especially, and this is an interesting point, Carney, and I'd be interested to see your observations on this. It seems to me that fathers who have either divorced or never been a part of the home, and yet they still love the kids, there's a level of guilt inside them. And so they want to make up for being absent. So they will often spoil the child. They don't live permanently with the child. They feel bad about that, and they're always on the road and working, whatever. So whatever he wants, it's like he buys it for his son or for his daughter. And often the point of their detriment, but they're doing that to like make up for not being there. Either not being there because he's permanently out of the home, or he's still part of the home, but he's always traveling. And so I'll just buy you whatever, even if it's not good for them. Like this, the mother's like, this is not good for them, but since I can't be doing for them what I really ought to be doing, I'll just give them whatever they want. Be careful of that. Have you seen that kind of thing, either in your own life or in those around you, of that kind of positive reinforcement only parenting?
I've definitely seen it. And you think about a situation when a child gets injured, and with 8 kids on your property and living
happens
in the wild.
all the time, every hour.
Yeah. And very often when the child gets injured, then everyone goes into coddle mode. We understand that, okay, you're going through great difficulty. We're going to coddle you. We'll get you an ice cream to make you feel better or something like that. And then now, if you imagine a situation where a parent is inflicting this consistent injury, as it were, of absence or just some deficiency in the child's life, and they're constantly trying to coddle to make up for that, whether it's an abusive parent who just keeps buying PlayStations and Xboxes, or an absent parent who always sends pocket money and It's just like, okay, just if you leave me alone, what do you want? I'll give you what you want if you leave me alone. And that happens very often in people who are not obeying what this verse is getting at, which is fathers teaching their children.
Yeah, that's good. So that's the one side of the horse, right? We fall off. We're too affirming. It's only positive. But then there's the other side, and I don't know what's more common. And that is every time my father talks to me, it's rebuke. It's, I did something wrong. There's no affirmation. He never says, I love you. He never says, good job. He never puts his arm around me. He's never sending me letters of encouragement. It's just straight up 13b, rebuke. And we have to be careful about that as well. So maybe the old generation in some ways weren't totally balanced either. And that is, it was only rebuke, it was only hard, it was only pushing. That's why it's so important to have two parents in the home, because typically one parent will kind of lean to one side or the other. And often it's the father, which I think is good. He's morally the disciplinarian. He's often the strict one. He's going to be the hard one. I often say to my wife, let me be the hard one. So if you have to err on a side, err on being gentle and soft. Not quite good cop, bad cop thing, because that's a show. That's not real.
Yeah.
But
I get the idea.
Yeah, the idea is let me be the firm disciplinarian. But when you have both parents in the home, it kind of gives both wheels of the bike. That helps it move along nicely. So that would be my second admonition. That is, not only fathers, teach your children. You have the primary responsibility all throughout Scripture, many practical ways to do this, but make sure you teach them in different ways and different methods, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. Make sure you keep a balance on that.
Yes. You spoke about writing letters to your kids. You spoke about giving your kids a pat on the back, encouraging them. What are some practical ways? Because there are some fathers who have never seen this. They had the disciplinarian father and they don't know how to do it.
I would be curious to see if my children would say I err on the side of too soft or too strict. I'm guessing, I'm not sure, but probably people from the outside looking would probably say I lean towards the strict side. If I'm guessing with my kids, they probably say I lean a little bit towards the soft side, because they will often say, you're not being strict enough with so-and-so, a part of the family. But
everyone always wants the hammer for the next person.
Yes, right. Letters are a big deal in our home. I need to improve on that, but we definitely exchange letters, and that's a great way to just pour out your heart to your child. I'm proud of you. You're doing well. You can have admonition in there too, but who doesn't like going back to their bed and having a handwritten letter by their father? I like spontaneity. I'm not a huge guy on gifts for the actual dates when they're supposed to be given. So Valentine's, birthday, Christmas, I'm probably weak on getting gifts on those days. I like giving spontaneous gifts of pull a kid out of bed and just say, hey, you want to drive and get something to eat? That kind of thing. Let's throw the ball. You're throwing a great spiral. You're improving on that. I looked at your grades. You're improving on your grades as well. Let's talk about the holiday that we're going to take. Find ways that they're doing well. We often have said that when our children are small, 90% of what they do is wrong. So since you're going to be saying no so often, really, I try to say yes as much as I can. If it's borderline, say yes. Because I know there's so many things that are not borderline that I'm going to have to say, no, you did this wrong. So if they do something well, or even if it's in the middle, try to be positive to kind of balance it out.
Yeah.
And then let me just give the third item, and that would be...
Just before you do that one, that saying yes as often as you can. I've seen you do that, and I'm just thinking back to the time a couple years back, 2022, I believe it was, and we were going for a music video shoot, and the kids wanted to ride on the back of the Land Rover, not just on the back, but on the top. And you're like, yeah, why not? And they're riding on the top, and you drove through some thorn trees, and they were rolling on the back like some sausages in a pan, getting hit by the thorns.
You asked for it, right? Yeah, that would be a good example. There are so many things that they're going to ask for that day that you just have to say no to.
Yeah.
Let's do whatever. Let's go on vacation today. It's like, what are you talking about? We can't do this. Right in the middle of the day, Father, come lie in my bed and read me a story. I can't do that. But so if it's in the middle, say yes.
Yeah. I was just taking your 3 youngest to the river to release a crab that I caught in the yard, being the animal lover. And Luke, your youngest son, was like, hey, can we eat it? And he's trying to poke it with a fork. And I'm like, no, Luke, don't poke it with a fork. And so it's just interesting. And I've seen you practice the letters and the discipline, but also gentle hand quite often. When we recently went to the Antioch church camp, Lawson opened up his letter that you had for he and the rest of us in the car, and he was reading it and it was sweet for us. And my wife and I have often received letters from you, and it's a big thing in your family. And I know that's a great encouragement to me. So I hope for other listeners, it'll be an encouragement to practice as well.
This one, the last point, kind of focuses the attention now away from the father a little bit and now to the son. So we've talked so much about how fathers can teach their sons, but now we have to discern how can sons receive this discipline, rebuke from the father. And there's 2 ways that it's done in verse 1. A wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. So I almost think of this in 3 categories. So when the father teaches, on the far right end, you have the son that says, yes, Father, I'm happy to listen to you. In the middle, he doesn't have that kind of enthusiasm, but he says, okay, I guess I'll do it. But then on the far left side would just be the scoffer. He not only fails to listen, but he ridicules the parent that is teaching him. He is a scoffer. This is the worst category in Proverbs, and we have a number of examples of this. I think of Proverbs 9:9. Give knowledge to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Make a righteous man know it, and he will increase in learning. So that's the example of someone who loves to receive correction. Give it to me. Make me a better person. I want this. Those who are listening today who are sons, you ought to be that Proverbs 9:9 kind of example. Then there's Proverbs 17:10. A rebuke goes deeper into one who understands than 100 blows into a fool. Have you met kids like that before? Have you met sons like that before? They just will not listen. I'm thankful that I don't have sons like that. They're not perfect, but what my wife and I often like to talk about is they might have struggled, they might have disobeyed, but do we see a kind of strong will, the brazen attitude, the stiff neck that just will not listen? That's the scoffer that we find in 13 verse 1. So, sons, when your son teaches you,
when your father teaches you.
When your father teaches you, listen to him. How can you listen to him? Let me give some practical examples. Show eye contact. That's not going to be perfect. You might be throwing the ball. You might be driving the car, but show eye contact. Give nonverbals. Nod your head. Give follow-up questions. Son, I've noticed you've been struggling with this. Can you explain that a little bit more? If he just sits with a dazed look, that's not a positive attitude. That's not a wise son who wants to listen. So give follow-up questions, and then follow that by saying thank you. Like, thank your father for correcting you. If you give a bad attitude, now your father's going to have to say, is this every time he wants to correct you? Let's say in a day, there's 10 times that he wants to teach you. But if you have a bad attitude, he has to determine, do I want to go to battle 10 times today? Like, do I really want to strap on my armor 10 times? It's exhausting. So now he only does that twice. There was actually 8 times that he should have corrected the son. But he didn't do it because he didn't have the strength to put on the armor. So now he only did it twice. That means 8 times the son did something incorrect that he could have been made a better person, but because of his attitude, he didn't gain the help from that. So sons, make it in such a way that your father can easily rebuke you, to the point that you say, are there any other things that you can correct me? If that's you, you're the wise son in Proverbs 13:1. He accepts his father's rebuke. Rebuke a wise man, the Bible says, and he will love you, but a scoffer, that's the one who gets 100 blows. It doesn't matter. He won't change. The scoffer does not listen to rebuke. These would be some of my gleanings from a small verse in Proverbs 13:1 about fathers and sons, but packs a heavy punch in how teaching ought to happen in the Christian home.
Just thinking about that practical element of listening from sons, the older and older I get, I've shared with you that I grow to respect my father more, even though he's passed, and I desire to honor him more, and I respect him more, even just his work ethic, and many other aspects about him. And in the Lord's providence, I get to spend quite a bit of time with your sons, and it's a privilege, but it's also a responsibility, which I'm consciously thinking of. And at least your oldest ones are at the stage where the teen years have come, and the questions are turning into a lot of why questions, and why this and why that, and I want to explore this world, and I'm ready, give me everything. And I'm often saying to them, you don't understand it now, but what your parents are doing is best for you, and you'll only see it later. So focus on listening now, and in the future, you will appreciate it. Take it from me and where I'm coming from. And one example is when we drive around in the villages and they see all the kids who are walking around with their phones or out late at night and seem like they have all the freedom in the world. And, oh, why this? Why that? And he looks like he's having fun. And it's like, no, you do not know what your parents are protecting you from and the blessing they're giving you with the guardrails they've provided. And you'll appreciate it tomorrow. And children need that. Sons need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any last words?
And thank you for doing that with my own sons. What great counsel, which is listen to your parents. I just want to close with one encouragement for mothers, because there might be some moms listening here and they say, what am I supposed to do? Maybe the father is absent, or he's not there, or he's not a Christian. What am I supposed to do? I would encourage you also from Proverbs 6 that there's a lot of teaching responsibilities that a mother has. Proverbs 6:20 says, my son, observe the commandment of your father. Yes, that's what we talked about today. And do not abandon the law of your mother. So I think in many ways you could apply the teaching responsibilities and how the father is to teach to the mother as well. So if you're a mother that is single or doesn't have the father as active as you would like, be encouraged that the mother has a great responsibility as well in teaching the children, all the way up to Proverbs 31, where she's giving great counsel to her son to be careful of these particular sins and then to follow after this particular woman. The father and mother, great responsibilities in the home, but in the end, the primary responsibility falls on us as men, as fathers. He's given us broad shoulders to carry that load, and may we carry forth that responsibility with vigor and Christ-likeness.
What a treat, Mfundisi. To our audience, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate it and subscribe to keep posted with more upcoming content. Feel free to share this episode with someone who might find it interesting, and submit any questions you may want answered in a future podcast. You can email those to paulschleiline@gmail.com. You can also visit betweentwocultures.com for other resources like this. I'm your host, Yamikani Katunga, and until next time, that's it for Missionary Minds.